Today, I am bringing you the revolution of Jacques-Louis David, and you will, by the end of it, you will feel like all of your problems are small because he was dealing with the biggest problems on earth.
Oh, man. Yeah, no kidding, right? Is that true,
Yeah,
though, really?
yeah.
Really? Did he have a rough life?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that he had a rough life. I'd say that he had a revolutionary, huge, epic life that is, there are very few people in the history of art or the world, arguably, who had as much influence as David did over his country and over art as David did. He was. It's so funny. Like I have a French professor that I speak with 5 days a week in French. I've been doing it for 2.5 years, and I spoke Spanish fluently before, and did my master's and PhD in Spanish. So my Spanish is almost like my English.
Whoa,
but my
that's
French
pretty
has
cool.
always been really, my French has always been terrible. And I hired this tutor, and I would talk to him about art that I was looking at or buying. And he's a 30-year-old educated French man, and he does not know like almost all the artists that I'm talking about that I would assume that he knows about, because I have this idea that all French people do is sit around and talk about art and poetry and philosophy, right? While they're smoking cigarettes, right? And his and he hasn't known anybody until I mentioned David.
Well, everyone
I was
knows
like,
David.
okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna talk about David. And he said, "Oh, David, bien sûr." And he's like, "This is who you. This is this." I said, "So tell me, what's your attitude about David?" And it was interesting because it wasn't only, it was almost as complicated as talking about Napoleon with him, because Napoleon's a complicated figure too, and people have very complicated feelings about David. So as we talk about David, I want everybody to know who's listening to this podcast that I'm not an expert on David. That's probably true about everybody we talk about. I'm not the expert on him.
Yeah, you always say that. Yeah.
Because you could dedicate your entire life to David.
Wait a minute, I got to ask you. You say that about everybody. Name one painter that you would confidently say you are an expert about.
Sorolla.
Okay. That's good.
Sorolla, I'm an expert on.
Okay.
Probably Francisco Pradilla as well. There are a number of regional artists that are, where we are, JT Harwood.
Yeah, because your studies in your postgraduate was Spanish, 19th century, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, life is too short to be an expert on multiple things in life, right? Like I know enough to be dangerous about a lot of people. David is one of them, but I do have to tell you that so there's this major. I got news in October that the Louvre had just opened. The Louvre in Paris, the world's most visited museum, had just opened a retrospective on David, and I think it was the first one they'd done in over 80 years. The first retrospective done on him.
When did you say this happened?
It opened mid last year, and it just ended, the exhibition.
I must have just missed it.
I told you must have just missed it. I told my wife and everyone I work with, I said, okay, if I'm gonna, there are probably a few times in my life where I would travel across the Atlantic to see a show.
What are you talking about? You travel all the time to see stuff.
I mean, just to see the show, right? Just to see the show, like to have no other business excuse, right?
Right.
So, usually I can line up a business reason for I've got a business reason for my travels, and I see other things while I'm there. But this one was, David has a once in a lifetime exhibition happening at the Louvre. John Singer Sargent's show that had been at New York and in London. A version of it went to the Musée d'Orsay, and it was this. Listen to this. It was the first solo exhibition of John Singer Sargent in France ever.
Wait, what do you mean solo? They empty out the museum except him?
No, meaning they've never had an exhibition dedicated just to Sargent in France ever.
You can't be serious.
I couldn't believe it either.
That's
Because
wild.
we think of him during that 10-year period when he was in France as being, especially with Madame X, as being so big, but he really did like pick up roots and move to London after Madame X. And so while I was there, they had Jacques-Louis David.
Mm-hmm.
They had the first ever solo exhibition of John Singer Sargent in France ever, and it was in the Musée d'Orsay, and it was huge. And then they had, do you remember that we talked during Christmas about a 17th century artist named Georges Latour,
Mm-hmm.
who had like hands with a candle behind them often. There was
Mm-hmm.
usually one point of light. So they had the first major Georges Latour retrospective also happening at another museum. So there were
Oh my
three
gosh,
once in
dude.
a lifetime exhibitions that I got to see all in one trip. It was unbelievable.
So how was the Sargent one? Was it remarkable?
It was remarkable. I'll tell you what they had all the greatest hits that we've all seen,
Hmm.
right? With the exception of the El Caleo, the Spanish flamenco dancer piece that is in the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. They didn't bring that one out, but they had Madame X. They had the portrait of the three children with the vase that was monumental. They had something that I hadn't seen before in person, but I'd only seen uh, reproductions of. Were almost there were maybe a half a dozen drawings while he was at the École des Beaux-Arts as a student
Mm-hmm.
that were his figurative drawings, which was good to see. And then they went through pretty much his whole career. Um, I mean, there weren't any surprises.
Did they have a lot of
I
his
don't know if like
watercolors too?
no watercolors,
None?
none,
Oh,
none.
interesting.
Which to me, his watercolors are some of his most amazing things that you've seen, right?
They're pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was, but it was over, I think, 200 works.
Oh
There
my
were a lot
gosh.
of things in
So
there.
how does that work exactly? You must know something about this. Do they pay? Like that one painting you mentioned of the three girls with the big old urns. It wasn't that in
Mhm.
Boston Museum of Fine Art?
Yeah,
So do
it
they
wasn't.
pay to have it shipped all the way to France and then
Yeah,
dude, that's an
yeah.
extraordinary expense. Not to mention the
I think that
insurance.
I think it was a twofer for them because I think that what happened was is it had already gone to London
Well,
as
and New
part of that
York first,
exhibition.
right?
Yeah, so it went to New York and then it went to London and Paris shortly afterwards announced we're going to do a show too. And so I think that while these things are in play, the idea is, like we'll all share the costs as three separate museums
Oh,
for the
really?
shipping
Okay.
of all these things. And then
Hmm.
they went to local collectors of anybody who had anything. And so there, in every one of those shows, there were things that weren't in the other shows because some people didn't want their works leaving New York. Some people didn't want their works leaving London. Some people
Mm-hmm.
didn't want them leaving Paris. And so you get a slightly different show in each place. From what I understand, what I had in the Paris show that I hadn't seen in the other two shows were works by his professors. Léon Bonnat, for instance, there were Bonnat and Carolus Duran works that were in Paris that it was unbelievable.
How did they look right
I
up
mean,
next to Sargent?
how did what?
How did they compare to Sargent being in the same room?
You know, it's a good question. I don't think there's a lot of daylight between Carolus Duran and Sargent when it comes to ability
Hmm.
on really any level. I mean, Carolus Duran was absolutely a master
Hmm.
and fully control of what he had to do. Sargent pushed the envelope of not defining edges and of showing his brushwork more.
Hmm.
And so he was willing to leave things unfinished that Carolus Duran, I think it was probably just a difference of 20 years of what was stylish
Mm-hmm.
and what somebody had internalized. You probably see it with your students Like you look and you think, okay, you know, like they're gonna. I'm a little more comfortable siding on this side of the of the of finishing, and they're a little more comfortable on this side of the finishing, but the underlying principles, they understand the value shifts, they understand the volume that's being produced, but it's just a matter of, you know, how do they choose to leave it.
Right. Right.
And I think when I saw Carolus Duran, that is one of the questions I wanted to know. Is I want to know, well, like, well, and it sets aside different issues of like Carlos Duran never pushed himself to do multi-figural works as much as Sargent did. He made his career almost entirely doing portraits that were standalone, either full body or three-quarter profile. And so, but those were absolutely beautiful. They were just unimpeachable pieces. You can see why Sargent wanted to go study with him. But you know, Sargent, I think, he was producing faster. He was more confident. He would leave it, you know, um, a little more to the imagination of the viewer rather than finishing off little details. And I think there was a lot of discussion about that in his study of Velázquez and Titian when he was doing that. These, you know, these artists who were, you know, and then there was a lot of I don't know if this works went to other venues, but at the Orsay there were um, several studies that led up to his Madame X portrait
Really?
that I had never seen before.
Not even in
Yeah, he kind of
reproduction?
had her. He had her walking around the room and sitting and doing different things in order to see if he wanted to accentuate the neck more or this more or that more. And you get an idea of, and he wasn't doing any interior. It's almost like when you look at somebody who does fashion design
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing very quick um, uh, drawings that show gesture of
Yeah.
like fabric and line. There was just a series of those where you could see, oh, he's trying to emphasize her neck, her nose, her bust, her, you know, her the line all the way down from her. Like he's going to de-accentuate this and go all the way down to her feet, and or he's going to have her lie down and have the arm extended way out to one side. And it was really cool to see what he chose not to do in order to pick the one that we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, my image is
My thing just went wacky for a sec. We're
that's
good
right.
now. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we should talk about Sargent at length one of these days. I know that many of the people who listen to this podcast are way more knowledgeable than I am about Sargent and his technique. He's not somebody who I've spent a lot of time trying to uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Break down how he did what he did. I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stories about him, but I've never really like studied him.
Right. Right.
So I'd want to do that work first.
Yeah, I got you. I
I'm sure you
honestly,
have. I'm sure you've spent a lot of time thinking
no,
about him.
no, hardly any actually. I mean, I do love his work. When I went to the National Portrait Gallery in London, I mean, he owned that gallery. I mean, he had what, like eight
Absolutely.
paintings in there or something, and they were the best eight paintings in the entire museum.
You know,
Um, it was
there's the one that
crazy.
has all of those World War I generals in khakis.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
like the opposite of society portraiture because they're not wearing all of this diaphanous silk gowns in gilt chairs. And
yeah.
it's like it's this super restricted palette of just like a sea of khaki. And the faces colors and values aren't that far different, like
Mm-mm.
in palette from it. It's not like he's working with high contrasts. And it's like to me, it's one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen in my entire life by
That's the
anybody.
thing. I know that's the thing about him because you know my work pretty well, and you know how much color I put into things like flesh. And I look at his stuff, and his flesh is so fleshy, so real, and yet so subdued and minimal. There's
Yeah.
and it's really so foreign to me and remarkable. But the thing is, it's also not what I'm after. So that's why I haven't really studied
Right.
him, right? Like I love his
Right.
work, but I'm not after that aesthetic in my work. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to study him,
Yeah.
you know. But I'm definitely a
One of these
fan.
days we'll talk about him.
That would be
One of these
great.
days we'll talk about him.
That'd be great. So you spilled the beans
So
already on who we're talking about today.
we're talking about Jacques-Louis David, who is, if you are interested in figurative art,
Hmm.
or figurative narrative art of any kind, you can't avoid David. David is, he changed the world. And we're going to talk about how he changed the world. First, let's talk about the world he came from. So I
Hmm.
want you to pick up an image that is in there um like to the left of that nude figure that's upside down.
Yeah.
That one right there. Nope, no, I'm sorry. It's not that one. Go to the right 5 images, and it's another. Keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. Right there. Okay.
That's
This is
David?
not David.
Oh, okay. I
This
was
is
gonna
not David.
say, like, what? Okay.
Okay. David is born mid 18th century, 1700s, into a wealthy family in Paris. And this family wants him to be an architect. And being an architect in France is, especially if you're wealthy, it's kind of a guarantee of a comfortable life.
Hmm.
Being a painter is not. And he really, really wanted to be a painter. And his family finally concedes, and they reach out to their network. And one of their network friends is Francois Boucher. And Boucher is the painter of the king. I
Hmm.
mean, this is how well connected the David family is. The David, as a boy, as a young, like preteen, goes to study with the king's painter. And this is kind of how it worked in the French art education of the time. Is there's this general thing called the French Academy. And the French Academy it's centered in Paris and in Rome. They've got
Hmm.
two locations, and you can go through there really isn't general education. You've kind of, if you're wealthy, you've got home tutors, like David did, who teach you language and history and things like that.
Hmm.
But if you want to go study at the École des Beaux-Arts, the School of Fine Arts, you have to pass a portfolio test, kind of like you have to do in university or ateliers today, right?
Hmm.
Which means that you can't just go to a state school. You kind of got to pre-study and develop your own portfolio of skills. And that's what he's doing. He's going to study with Francois Boucher. And Boucher is the uh, definitively the painter of what the French call the rocaille and what we call Rococo. It is this very pastel type palette. It's all about liveliness and joy and freedom, and there's a lot of classical references, and it's also about decadence,
Hmm.
and about it's it's about there's a real joy to Rococo or Rocaille painting, and it's also art that is, it's funny, in an architectural sense, a lot of Boucher's paintings are subjected to architectural space. So the architect's in charge and he's fitting niches within buildings. He's doing
Hmm.
ceilings, he's doing walls. A lot of his paintings don't get seen as paintings. A lot of his paintings actually get into tapestries and reinterpreted. And then the tapestry gets hung somewhere.
Hmm.
So Boucher he's working for the aristocracy. He's creating these beautiful flowing images, which are quite complicated compositionally, and very inventive.
Yeah, look at those
And
fish. That's a trip.
oh, it is crazy. I mean, and we look at it and for us today, it's hard to look at this with any seriousness because it seems very foppish and very it's part of it is that it's the subject matter of all these nudes, which he was very known for, but it's also, you know part of it is that it doesn't have a real narrative for us, right?
Hmm.
And it did for them. he's painting for Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette. And I think that David goes there and he immediately starts showing real talent. And Boucher is saying, okay, we're going to fast track this kid. And they do. He goes to work with another painter.
Did you tell us when what age he was when he started?
The age that he started, let me see if I got that right here. Hold on a second. I want to go back. I've got my notes here. I want to be absolutely accurate.
And then I have a question about Rococo when you answer that.
Yeah, so he goes to work with Boucher. Let's see. When gosh. I mean, he's born in 1748.
Okay.
And I think he's it's like the 1760s.
Okay.
And so he's a late teen when he goes. And then he goes and he studies with a guy named Vian. What was your question about Rococo though?
Some of these movements are so hard for me to define. And I was just wondering, I mean, it's everything you described about this painting and this style is pretty obvious, but I feel like I've seen similar attributes in other styles like Mannerism, for example. Am I wrong about that?
Mm-hmm. No, not at all. It's absolutely
so what how do you clearly put these into neat little boxes? Is there something very definitive that makes this Rococo and not something else like Mannerism?
Oh, you've opened up a can of worms here because art historians love to categorize things and put things in boxes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like Degas is an impressionist. Degas is an impressionist. He's not an academic artist.
Right.
But Degas was clearly like a very serious figurative artist.
Right.
And so were some of the impressionists, right? And I don't think we can. To me, it's different with Boucher because Boucher really was synonymous with Rococo.
Okay.
And when we think about the Rococo, key characteristics are the palette,
the pastel palette.
Yeah, the very light coloring. Even the darks are not super dark, right?
Yeah.
There's a lightness to everything. The lines and shapes that happen in Rococo, it's very free flowing. To the point that the figures are often subjected to the composition rather than the composition determined by what a figure can realistically do.
Right.
A lot of it is just like, it's like fantasy art in some level. A lot of it is just imagined. And then the figures are kind of like secondary to whatever composition and shape the artist wants to create. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of who it was created for and the space that it goes into. So Rococo work was often created for the aristocracy. And that's a big difference between David and the others. There's this, you've probably heard this, and we're going to talk a lot about politics today, but in France, there was this term of the first, second, and third estate in society. The first estate was the aristocracy, royalty. The second estate was the priesthood or the church. And the third estate was everyone else. And the French government was controlled by the first and second, and property was controlled by the first and second estate. And that was 3% of the population. 97% of the population was the third estate. And David came from the first estate, kind of. Like he was right on the edge of it because his family had some aristocracy, but they were very wealthy and they were a merchant class, and merchants were part of the third estate. So he was bordering on these worlds.
But these are just classes. This isn't like a.
Yep.
This is an abstract.
It's a class difference.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So the Rococo art, because art is often defined by the audience it's made for as well, too, right? So like, is it religious art? Did it hang in a church? Rococo art is almost entirely made for the first estate. It was made in palaces, for palaces.
Oh, well, that's a pretty clear definition right there. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so you're not going to go see a bunch of Rococo art hanging in a church, usually, right? There are versions of it, but it was made for the first estate.
Interesting.
And I think that, David gets into this world, and David was a little bit of a hellion, and that's one of the reasons I like him and dislike him. I've got really mixed feelings about him. He's interesting because he goes in and he goes to Boucher's studio, and then he goes to Vienne studio, and then he goes to the École des Beaux-Arts. And in the École des Beaux-Arts, he distinguishes himself for his technical virtuosity. So go to put the two nude single figure males together. There's one upside down and there's one with his back to us. So there's one and there's the other. Okay. Done about the same time.
Yeah.
And this was a third year art project. So you go to the École des Beaux-Arts, your first year is basically everybody's taking the same classes. It's cast drawings, partial cast drawings. Second year, you're doing full cast drawings. And the third year, you're doing nude models, always men, in the form usually of cast models, but sometimes not like these. These aren't exactly in the form of any classical cast model. And you're not learning painting, by the way, in school at all. There is no painting class in the École des Beaux-Arts until I think the late 1860s, early 1870s. And this is 100 years before that. So everything's based on drawing. And then you're supposed to learn how to paint from a person who is a well-known painter outside of class on your own. So David is yeah. So that's kind of how it works.
So is it sort of like an internship? They get you through drawing, and then they're like, okay, now go off and do your internship with so and so. Okay.
Yeah. And you so David, he's described consistently as being moody, as being difficult, but everybody puts up with him because he's very talented. And I could show you a lot of drawings from this time, a lot of paintings from this time, figurative art. They're terrible, really terrible.
Of David's?
And no, not of David, of just his contemporaries.
Oh, okay.
Because you got to remember, like, you're creating a system that's a factory for creating artists. And you can create, and we've all seen this, you can create a certain level of competency with a level of education. And, people can get mostly there and do mostly good work, right? If everybody's learning the skill set that is, how do you measure, how do you handle value, how do you handle, people are mostly accurate. You're not going to look at people from his generation and say accuracy is a problem, because they're all in the factory and they're all getting accuracy right.
So what's bad about it?
Where the difference is, what sets him apart is his ability to make things feel beautiful. That's what they comment on, right? And to not only like pull it down to the simplest notion of what's in an image, but also make what's there beautiful. So what's happening in these is, for people who haven't done or seen a lot of classical drawings, I've seen tens of thousands of them, of classical drawings and paintings. You're not really painting the figure that's in front of you accurately. What you're doing is you're simplifying a lot of the form, and some things maybe you are being
or accentuating in cases,
right? Or accentuating, right? Yeah, exactly. And so, you look at these figures, and he's had classes in how drapery looks. He's being judged on drapery. He's being judged on composition. He's being judged on anatomy, and he's being judged on value. And when I say value, what they would have meant in that day is not only lights and darks, but they would have meant how the eye is drawn across the figure in the highlights and the lowlights, the darks and lights of a figure, right? And so if you look just at the figure on the left, I mean, he's deliberately simplifying the buttocks and the hamstring and the quad. And then he's got the foreshortening of the leg ending in the feet, which are facing us.
Mm-hmm.
And those feet, the more you look at them, the more you realize that there's a lot of fudging going on there deliberately. He's trying not to get you to look at the feet. He's trying to get you to look at the back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the back is absolutely overdone compared to the lower half of the body. It's a choice,
Whoops.
right?
Hold on. I want to go back to that one.
Yeah.
Click that one. What? Sorry. Okay,
That's
I
right.
just want to zoom in here.
And so
You know what's strange about these
there's,
feet? It looks like they're pressed up against glass.
it does look like they're pressed up
Why
against
is
glass, doesn't it?
that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Huh.
But maybe it's also because there is a little bit of naturalism going on in there that was usually avoided, because there's a lot of classicism going in this, making it look like an idealized figure. But these aren't people that have modern shoes. Maybe he was making a point by making the feet look really worn and
Mm-hmm.
flat, right?
Hmm.
But then you look at how gorgeous that back is. I mean, that back and the really complicated um transitions of color and shade and highlights that he's doing there, and how look at how he makes the left arm disappear in the front. um the more
Yeah.
you look at where that left arm would be, it doesn't these are choices that he made that it's not about accuracy, it's about beauty, it's about
Hmm.
he's walked away from lessons and trying to all these lessons, and he's trying to show what rules to break, what rules to follow. And David excelled in the academic tests of the human figure and making the human figure look beautiful. And for him, um,
Hmm.
he hated later generations. Eng, for instance, we'll show an example of it later, who would um, push things too far in their exaggeration of form
Mm-hmm.
against anatomy. He hated it. And so you look at this and you think, oh, he's fudging that foreshortening a little bit. He's like fudging the left arm and how it bends in front a little bit and making us look at some things a little bit more than others. But for the most part, it's kind of, it's pretty accurate. There's a lot of
It looks right to
it's
me. I mean, that
and then
foreshortening's
look,
justifiable if he's stepping way back. There's not going to be a lot of growth in the scale of the feet if he's standing way
oh, and
back.
I should also say there's this famous torso that's in the Michelangelo helped discover, that's in the Vatican, that is a classical sculpture, that he's putting that figure in the form of the classical sculpture, but this
Hmm.
classical sculpture doesn't have any arms and it doesn't have anything below the mid waist.
Hmm.
And so they would have known that David was like finishing the classical sculpture with this nude model
So it's
when he's
just a
looking at it.
twisting torso.
Yeah, it's twisting torso.
So
And
one
I'm
thing
sorry I
I've
didn't bring
noticed
that
is
in.
the hair. It gives
Yeah,
so much movement. It's almost like he's about to whip
it
around
does.
with that other arm.
It does, doesn't it? It's
I
interesting,
wonder if
and
that
it's
was
right up against
intentional.
this kind of like. I'm sure it was. I'm sure that, and it's like it's like you've got this very very dark moment on the far left, and then you've got the body as a contrast against that kind of rock, and then the black of the head. And I think it's because it's supposed to make it feel like the dismembered sculpture again, like you're looking at like the head. You can kind of imagine seeing that torso.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, in fact, if you want to pull it up, um, the sculpture is called uh, um, let me see.
Do you want me to Google it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
All right, let me open up a new window
um,
here.
the classical sculpture is the Gaddi torso, Gaddi.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me pull that up real quick.
so he would have had he would have had this sculpture from,
Yeah,
you know,
there it is. I'm trying to
he would
make
have
it
had
come
it.
up.
He would have had this in his classes, and everybody would have been aware of it, and they would have looked at David's choice of taking a real figure, putting it in there convincingly. And one of the reasons why the hair is what it is the hair is kind of disappearing to make it still look like it's a disembodied figure a little bit,
Right,
you know,
right.
figure without a head. So I mean,
Huh.
this is David showing his skill set to his at his graduation, basically, like at the end of his École des Beaux-Arts period, that he's mastered all of these skills. And if a student had come to you and taken one of these like things that he had partially done in his first year and then applied all of his skills to show that he could make it look like a real living human person, that was the point of arts education then, right?
Yeah.
He's really like showing off. So where do you go after this if you've graduated? The only real place to go as a graduate of the École des Beaux-Arts is you can have a middling career in France and do illustration, which is basically taking other people's paintings and doing etchings of them for newspapers and books and things like that.
Hmm.
Or you can become a portraitist, or you can become a teacher. But the top rung, excuse me, is to become an official painter for the state or for the king. And the only way to really do that is you've got to win the Prix de Rome, the Rome Prize. And only a handful of artists, usually 2 to 3, are picked every year to go to Rome to study for 3 to 5 years. And it's some artists would do it for 5 or 6 years in a row. They would attempt to do this annual contest. And it would take several years sometimes to get accepted, even if you were one of the best. And David, I mean, like, listen to this. Let me read this. This is from his Wikipedia page, which is an accurate telling. David made 3 consecutive attempts to win the annual prize, with each failure allegedly contributing to his lifelong grudge against the French Academy. After
That's
his second
typical.
loss, After his second loss in 1772, David went on a hunger strike,
What?
which lasted for 2.5 days before the faculty encouraged him to continue painting, saying that he could still possibly win if he tried again.
What is
So,
he, a
like,
giant baby?
yeah, he was. I mean, I'm not
Oh my
being.
gosh,
I
are
mean,
you kidding me?
do you remember me saying that he was a moody, difficult person?
Yeah,
He
he sounds like a
literally told
giant
everybody in the
toddler.
school. He told everybody in the school because he knew he was so talented, and he's got all this encouragement. And he said, and I think that after he lost the prize twice, he basically said, "Look, I know I deserve this, and I'm going to show you. Like, I'm going to go on a hunger strike and get everybody's attention and shame everybody who didn't give me the prize." And then he won the next year, right?
Wait a minute, but
He won the next
that
year.
could not have been related. No one would entertain that.
No, yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, he
The hunger strike affected his ability to win? Like
well, the hunger strike told everybody how serious he was and
so
that
it
he
actually
wasn't going to let it
worked?
go. And he also, but look, I mean, it's more complicated than that because he got real feedback on his two. What would happen is they would draw. This is how it would work. This is how you would. I'm not going to give you the whole Prix de Rome process, but there was a figure drawing portion
Yeah.
where you were required to go so many days a week, so many hours into a room and draw the same figure that everybody else was drawing. And you had to leave all your materials behind every day. So you had the same amount of time with the model and the same amount of time to draw as everybody else. That was one stage. And another one was you had a subject drawn out of a hat, and it was usually a classical subject. And so the teachers would choose maybe like 10 subjects. And then one of the judges would pull out the subject. So maybe it was, like, okay, so the first 2 years, Minerva fighting Mars. The second year was Diana and Apollo killing Niobe's children. And the third year was the death of Seneca. And so every one of the students has this, and you're allowed very quickly to do a compositional drawing of what that subject would be, and you have a deadline. I think you have to do it in a room with everybody there, and then they put that in an envelope, and you're sent off to do the painting in a period of time, and then they compare the composition you put you in your initial drawing with the one you end up with.
I just have to take a minute to thank each one of my generous patrons for your part in keeping this podcast going. I could not continue to do it without you, so thank you so much. If you're not a patron yet, but you love the show and you listen regularly, please consider becoming a patron. It's really easy to do, and it doesn't have to break the bank. Just head over to theundrapedartist.com and click on the link Be My Patron on Podbean. And then choose a monthly donation amount that fits your budget. It's that simple.
Have you ever seen any of these drawings?
Oh yeah, yeah. Not of David's. Well, I've seen David's.
What do they look
Painting,
like?
I
Are
haven't
they
seen the
kind of
drawing.
crude, imaginative drawings, or?
Oh yeah. They're super sketchy, deliberately sketchy.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
and they're done in a matter of hours, right? And so,
Huh.
I mean, just imagine you're thrown into a room and somebody says, "Okay, Jeff, I want you to do Christ calling the fishermen,"
Yeah.
and you've got 3 hours to do it, and whatever you end up with as a composition is going to be the composition you have to paint over 3 weeks, but you have to leave it with me, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe you would do like two. You do like your own thumbnail and do one that was theirs on an 8.5 by 11 sheet or something like that.
Right.
It's not big. And then you come back and if it's dramatically changed, you're marked down on points, right? You're kind of judged on your imagination in the moment, and then your ability to stay not only faithful to it, but your idea to think big in a very quick matter, in a very short period of time.
So what you're saying
And-
is, that back then they valued an artist's ability to come up with their own concept and their own composition to the degree that the prize was awarded based on your ability to come up with a composition and actually execute the composition out of your own imagination.
Yeah, which goes against the AI thing that we've been talking about in the very beginning, right?
So you read my mind.
Yeah. So, but that's exactly it. Because I mean, think about it. Your
man.
job, even one of the first things you're given as a young artist, even before you enter the École des Beaux-Arts, is you're given other artists' prints, and you're given onion paper, kind of like see-through paper, and you're tracing compositions to understand, and you're graphing compositions to understand how the golden mean works, to understand how people are putting together all of their pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of is everybody it's not like you've got the infinite information that we've got today.
Mm-hmm.
They're all familiar with the old masters that they're familiar with, and they know if your composition is original, a variation on something that you've seen before, or an exact copy of something that was done by Rubens or Poussin or Claude Lorraine or somebody else. So I mean, these teachers, it's kind of like, I mean, imagine we're doing cars, Jeff. Like, imagine you showed up today and you were in a car design composition, and somebody said, "Oh my gosh, Jeff took a 57 Chevy and modernized it. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He brought it into 2026." That's kind of what's happening in these compositions, is they're saying, "Oh my gosh, like this composition is, man, it's kind of like a Boucher composition, but it's done with this flair, that," right? So as an artist, it's not like you're working from scratch every time, but you're being tested not only on your knowledge of other artists, but on your ability to have your own identity within these other artists.
Right. And
Right?
what you personally learned from
Yeah.
these artists. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting about this, though, is they didn't, they might have been familiar with these artists, but they would have to travel to various museums, churches, palaces, whatever, to see these works. It's not like they had a library of reproductions in their homes.
No, and that is one reason why you go to Rome, because the Prix de Rome, your first job, year one, you're there for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Year one is to copy an old master. And it can be Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, a portion of it. And these copies go back to the École des Beaux-Arts as examples for students.
Are they allowing
So they're
people to
using,
sit in the chapels in
yeah,
various
yeah, yeah.
places to actually do these?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the it's cool because you're using these graduate students to send back material that's then used to educate younger students.
Hmm.
So year one, they're copying old masters and sending them back. Year two, they're just depends on where you are, but the final year of graduation, you've got to come up with your own monumental work and composition. And I'm going to show you David's last work as a student in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a monumental piece of which looks like it's got a classical monument in it. It's not, I don't see it in front of us. Oh yeah.
I've got all of
keep
them pulled
going.
up,
Is this all of them?
as far as I can tell.
Um,
There might be one more. Nope, that's it.
Go to one that's got tons of figures in it. Just like tons. It's not that one. Keep going. Not that one. It's that one, I think. Yep. Okay. So this is the death of Patroclus or Patroclus, depending on how you say it.
Oh, that's
It's a
so many
moment in
figures. That's
it's a moment
insane.
in the it's a moment in the story of the I think this is the second year of work, actually, not his final work. But this is a scene from the Odyssey, and there's a moment when Patroclus, who's the lover of Achilles, puts on Achilles' armor because Achilles refuses to fight. And Achilles is really like the secret weapon of the Greeks against the Trojans.
Mm-hmm.
And Patroclus goes out, and and the enemy thinks that it's Achilles. And because he's wearing Achilles' armor, and Patroclus gets killed. And then Achilles feels so guilty because he refused to fight and put on his own armor, and Patroclus pretended to be him and got killed for it.
Hmm.
And so Achilles, who takes Patroclus's body and creates this enormous funeral pyre in front of the Greek army and burns the body. And basically, it's the beginning of the turnaround of the fight, because now Achilles is going to enter in and like help destroy the Trojans. Like, it's a turnaround moment. And when he when David submits this work, the committee's like, okay, good subject, overcomplicated composition. You're trying too hard, David. It's too much information. Like,
Yeah.
they're just like, this isn't this is not going to work. And
Really?
yeah, and
What do you think
he
about
gets
that perspective?
what do I think about that perspective?
Because it
I
is
think
complicated in number of figures and amount of information, but the composition's actually quite simple. There's just like a C shape of light and the rest shadow.
yeah. Yeah, I think
Feels sort of Rembrandt with the tenebrism thing
it does. I think that his, it's hard for me to second guess his professors. I think the reason why it's hard for me to second guess is because it's like any system of art. They've got really thoughtful reasons for why they felt like he overcomplicated it, right? And why they feel like he's trying too hard. But as a student, he's trying to throw the whole kitchen, everything but the kitchen
Yeah,
sink
he's
in
showing
there.
off
You know what I mean?
everything he's got.
He's got and so you look, is it an incompetent work? Absolutely not. I mean, he's a very good artist at this point. I mean, he's not and if you're looking at this, you can really see, I mean, let's see how big it is. I've got um the size of the work is 218 centimeters wide. So that's 218 centimeters to inches.
It's like 90
It is
inches or something.
85 inches wide. 85 inches wide. So
That's
it's
7 feet.
it's about 7 feet. It's 7 feet wide, right?
Okay.
It's an ambitious piece.
So it's probably 4.5 feet tall. So
Yeah,
so
about
these
that.
figures are maybe what, like 12 inches at the most?
Yeah.
That's
It's just, I
little
mean,
figures.
it's a very ambitious piece. And look, it's got a lot of layers. You've got this
Yeah.
foreground, you've got, and he's following the rules of most important figure or brightest light. He's got, what's interesting is that pyre is tilted a little bit towards us, which then allows you to, look towards, it pulls you into the interior a little bit more to the left of that pyre. And the way that he's chosen to highlight different figures, put,
The pyre,
some things that are brighter and darker. And
forgive me, I'm an idiot. The pyre, is
No.
it the pile of wood? I don't know what a pyre is.
yeah, it's the pile of wood. That's exactly what it is.
Oh,
They're
okay.
that's because they're gonna take the body and put it up on that and light it
I've
on
never
fire.
heard that phrase before, or that term before, pyre.
And so there's a lot of it's just, I mean, even look at how he's got on the far right, he's got the horses that are highlighted in one way, but then he's got a dark moment behind it, but then he's got light against that shows more of that there's a whole crowd back there. I mean, it's a very complicated, difficult composition. It's a very difficult composition. And you're not looking at it and thinking anatomically that he's got a bunch of things wrong in it either. There's exaggerations for sure, but they kind of he's really upset with their answer. And here's something that he does, and this is really the beginning of his revolutionary thumb in the eye. Is he sends a painting. His next major work is I'm going to skip ahead a little bit in his time, is the Oath of the Horatii. So go to the it's got three men and one on the left and one man holding up a sword.
Okay. No?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It is hard. So the other one was 7 feet wide, right?
Yeah.
This is, and think of how complicated how many figures were in that, how complicated the background was. I mean, how many layers and layers and layers were there?
Mm-hmm.
If you had to guess how big you think this is, how big would you say you think this is?
This is a lot bigger. I mean, the figures are a lot bigger.
Yeah, the figures are a lot bigger.
So my guess is 10 feet tall.
It is 129 inches tall and 167 inches wide.
Dude, did I nail that? 129?
You
That's
nailed
10
it.
feet 9. That was a pretty good
Well
guess.
done, buddy. But look at how much he's pared down and
Look at
simplified.
that leg. Look at those veins.
It's incredible, isn't it? Look at the and you know what? Look at those kneecaps and the knees.
That's
Look at the knee
beautiful.
behind look at the knee on the other knee that's in shadow.
This one over here?
All of them. I mean, just all of them. They're beautiful. I mean, they're
Look how
absolutely
hard
beautiful.
edged it is, though. This would never, like, you.
I mean,
I don't
when you look
see
at
that
this
very
at
often in contemporary work.
when you look at this at a distance, like zoom out again, it
Yeah.
feels somewhat wooden, and it's deliberate. This is a deliberate reaction against Boucher, stylistically.
Really?
Boucher is all these flowing lines, right? All of this organic flowing stuff. This is hard, straight lines, edges. This is not Rococo painting. I mean, David is inventing largely neoclassicism.
Is there no one else doing this simultaneously?
No, he changes the world with this. He
Really?
changes the world with this painting. And it's also the subject matter. So the story of this painting is that I mean it's okay. So there's this legend of the 7th century of a dispute between two warring cities, Rome and Alba Longa. And this family had promised to defend Rome. And And so what the father does in this moment is he makes his children swear an oath that they will put their lives before their own lives, before before everything else, to defend and sacrifice everything they have for the well-being of the people and the state of Rome.
Hmm.
So it's a painting about sacrificing yourself for the state.
Hmm.
And it becomes by the way, the women all know that this is the moment that these men are committing suicide, which is why they're in their positions. And I got to tell you, in the exhibition that I saw in London, I mean, sorry, in London and Paris, the most beautiful drawings in the exhibition were the drawings of these three women individually.
No
Like he
joke, really.
did several drawings. I didn't bring up the drawings because there's just too much to talk about. But just look at
This woman in the
just
foreground is gorgeous.
oh, it's just so beautiful. I mean, they're just so beautiful.
They're very simple.
And they know
surprisingly
these are the
simple.
three wives. Sorry, they're two of the wives and the mother of the three boys on the left, and these two women are the wives of two of the men who've sworn their oath. And David, by putting this painting forward, is not only like making an artistic statement where he has absolutely simplified his style, but he's gone to an extreme that his teachers never would have understood.
Yeah, this looks
It's
like
way more
19th
simplified.
century painting. Like,
Well, it's
look
because
at
it's the
look,
basis for 19th century painting.
look
It's
at,
like
is it?
this is
Yeah.
yeah, big. Everybody studies David. David is ground zero.
Is it? I mean, he looks like he's painting these hands and faces direct. Look how
You mean
loose.
directly?
Directly
Yeah,
meaning not layered. It looks very direct. It looks like one layer of paint.
We're going to look at a little bit at one of his unfinished canvases so you can see how he painted.
Mm-hmm.
But so what he's doing is he's doing a premier pense, which is the kind of like a thumbnail sketch, and then he works it into a more detailed drawing, and then he grids that, and then he breaks down every figure with a model that he does a detailed drawing of, and then he does a color study. So I mean, this is how he was taught to work, right?
Right.
And then he grids the canvas,
Okay.
and then he paints into the canvas. And I think he is doing direct painting, like you're saying. There's not a lot of he's not doing tons of layers. There's some of that, but
Yeah, I imagine he's coming back in here and there, but I don't see a lot of glazing or anything. I mean, it's hard to tell in a reproduction, but it's
so this
remarkable.
painting becomes so famous. Look at the far right image at the bottom, put it side by side with this image zoomed out.
The far right.
The far right.
The clock?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, it's made after that. Huh.
It becomes so famous. It becomes one of the most iconic images ever in the revolution.
Wow.
That everybody is talking about how, I mean, the French state is in a real bind. I mean, Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette are inherited a very dysfunctioned and in-debt government. And as hard as they're trying to make everything solvent, the PR is not good too, because Marie Antoinette and her people are, and not just Marie Antoinette, Louis the 16th and all of their people are living. I mean, I don't think she was the heartless aristocrat that everybody tended to make her out to be, and she gets executed and pays the ultimate price for it in the end. But the French government is it's unable to pay its debts. 90% of the people are in that third estate, and most of the third estate, like 80%, is economically suffering. And it doesn't help that they have several years of drought and crop failure from disease and all kinds of problems, right? And war with England, and they also go into huge debt helping the United States win its independence from England. I mean, they really have lots of problems. And David,
Oh, that's weird to put the U.S. Revolution at the same time. That's true.
Yeah, and David is part of this group of people that are called the Jacobins, and they, along with Robespierre and Marat, decide that they're gonna they're going to overthrow the government. And they do. They do. And David is not just like a friend with the revolutionaries. He is there. He helps draw up the death lists of who needs to be executed without a trial. And he's
What?
designing the uniforms of the executioners and of the new soldiers.
Why do you need
And he's-
uniforms?
No, because every revolution needs branding, right? I mean,
Wow.
like everything, and David is absolutely. And guess what? Like, his wife divorces him over it because his wife comes from the wealthy. So he's got a wife and 4 kids, and he gets divorced because of the revolution, loses his family, loses his children, becomes a revolutionary. And it's also a thumb in the eye to the academy because he feels like the French Academy didn't give him the Prix de Rome when he deserved it. When he returned, they don't give him his position. He wants to be the president of the Academy in Rome, and they don't give him that position either. And he's kind of a baby about it, right?
Yeah.
And he also he wants to be in charge. And on one hand, there's the argument that David was winning enough popular and critical acclaim for pieces like this that it was inevitable that he was going to be in charge at some point. But he throws in all his lot entirely with the academics. And he paints a work that we won't be able to talk about everything he did, but I'm going to show you one more work that's from this period that you'll know because it's at it's the Death of Socrates. It's at the Met Museum. And I'll show you 2 more works, actually. Go to the Met Museum. It's Socrates with his finger up, sitting on a couch. Keep going to your left, I think. No, is that not it? No, one more to the left. No, is that not it? No. Oh, keep going to the right. Keep going. I'll tell you when to stop. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. 2 more over. There, stop.
Oh, yeah, I know this painting.
This is a very, very famous piece.
Yeah.
Okay, so Socrates, the ultimate moral figure who is killed by the state, forced to drink hemlock for his convictions because he is accused of preaching against the state. And everybody realizes now that Socrates was right and the state wasn't. And David submits this painting, and it's probably the most famous history painting of the era. I mean, today, I think, and probably part of that is because of the Met. The Met made it famous in the United States, but I mean, compositionally, it's, we could talk forever about this piece. I won't talk about it forever, but this piece is essentially a revolutionary image, but it continues, as you can see, that very pared down style. He can do complicated, angled, multi-layer pieces if he wants to, and this is pretty wooden and deliberately wooden compared to Boucher. But I mean, zero in on just like,
I don't
zero
understand
in on
how
that
he got
figure.
from this to this.
It was a choice. He was deliberately coming up with a new style which emphasized
Yeah, because this kind of
fewer
has
figures.
this kind of a hybrid between that Rococo and what he's doing. Am I wrong?
Yeah, and this piece right here is more of the style of what his contemporaries were doing. And then this is, I mean, it looks like a sculptural frieze almost. It's like flat planes.
Yeah.
Like everything
So
is
rigid.
and even the figures are made to look somewhat rigid. But the more you examine the figures, the more you realize just how beautiful moments are in them. And it would have seemed at the time to be morally, it's almost the equivalent of, I mean, imagine this. Okay, let's do a thought exercise. Imagine you just watch a Marvel movie or a Transformers movie,
Okay.
and you're seeing all of this CGI, all of these explosions, all of these sounds,
Yeah.
right? And then someone says, you know what? I'm going to do an X-Men. I'm going to do a movie with Spider-Man and the X-Men. And I'm not going to rely on any of that nonsense of special effects and all of these complicated things. I'm going to make it a black and white movie. And I'm going to make it all about the drama and the content, and I'm not going to rely on any of the special effects. I'm going to have a superhero movie that's in black and white, that's all dialogue. I mean, can you imagine how that would? Can you imagine how that would seem to people if they saw it? They like if it was pulled off well.
Do you think that's how
If
he
somebody were
saw
to
it? Do you
see,
think? Do you think
I
he
think
saw it
that's
as
how
a?
he saw it.
Because that analogy almost makes it sound like he's going backwards.
What it is that he's now relying the on character development. He's no longer relying on like he's relying on the story, the moral behind something. I mean, did you see the movie
But that's
Logan?
quite a story.
It is quite a story.
I mean, look at all the way from the ships. You know what I noticed back here is
I know, but
they're bringing more
like,
wood with oxen. I mean, he didn't miss a beat.
I mean, it's almost like, you know, if you've seen, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's the difference between relying on all the bells and whistles and trying to blow everybody away with special effects and trying to pull people down to what's most essential and important. And if you were trying to, I mean, this is a bells and whistles painting that's supposed to get you. I mean, it's like, have you ever?
I'm trying to figure it out from a technical perspective.
I know you are. And I don't want you to miss the point though of what I'm trying to. I need
No,
to
no,
know
no.
that
I
you
know you're
understand
not.
this.
I know
It's the
you're
idea that it's like, you know, sometimes you get like a pop singer who will have auto tune and backup dancers and every instrument known to man that's put into a computer.
right.
And then you hear them alone with a guitar.
Just acoustic. Oh yeah.
And you realize that they
Like
can
a Nora
actually have
Jones
talent
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, why is this really resonating with me more than the
Okay,
big
I see what
stage
you're
with the
doing. I
fireworks?
see what you're talking about.
He's taking the same stories that were painted in some before, and he's even painting them in the same scale, but he's deliberately making them simpler.
Yeah, he's
Not
just
because he
stripping
doesn't
them
know
down.
how.
He's stripping it
Stripping them
down,
down to the
of
most
all
essential.
the extra non-necessary or unnecessary decoration and eye candy.
I'll give you one more that I think is a better example of
Okay.
this for me, which is there's one of a man that's on the far left. Let's see if I can see it on your list.
What? Okay. Man.
Oh, go to the far right. It's the third one in from the right. Okay. This is a very deceptively complicated painting that is huge.
Wait, this is him too?
This is also him painting.
Why does this one look
He
different?
painted this after the death of Socrates. He painted it 4 years after.
This looks different.
And he's what looks different to you?
Well, first of all, tell me the size. It'll help me to know why. Do you know the size of this painting?
Yeah. It's also about 15 feet wide.
Okay, so these are close to life-size figures again, if not life-size.
Yeah.
The figures, first of all, he doesn't have this sort of cut and pasted look to his figures where he does in his other work.
No.
So he's got soft edges along the skin. It's modeled differently, it seems like, where he's got his shadows are almost completely down to the canvas. And then his faces are like sort of like these idealized faces, and they're much more polished.
Hold the phone on the idealized faces.
Okay.
We're gonna get to that in just a minute. Zoom out for a minute. So David's paintings, this was the first painting that he submitted to the National Salon after the revolution happened. And any painting that was overtly in favor of taking down the monarchy and the ancien regime, or the aristocracy, was banned from the competition. And he was able to get this snuck in. This is The Lictors Bring Brutus the Bodies of His Sons. That's what the title of it is. Brutus is on the left.
The one sitting in shadow
are mourning, and he's sitting in shadow. And the idea is that Brutus promised to support the republic or the state over the aristocracy, and his own sons rebelled against the state to try and support a new king. And so he has to order the death of his own children who oppose this, who were trying to put a new king in power, and supplant the will of the people. So zoom in on the left. You see
on the man in the shadow.
Look at the body being carried.
Oh yeah. God, so those are nice looking feet.
So that is one of his son's bodies being carried. Zoom out just a little bit. Behind a statue of Minerva who represents justice. And then look at the table, because when the women see the body.
Which table? This one
they
over
drop,
here?
Yep, they drop their yarn, which makes that ball of yarn falling off the thing is the head that's fallen off the son that's been executed.
Wait a minute, is that for like is this one of those speculation
he wrote about it.
things? He wrote about it.
He talked about it.
What?
He talked about it.
That's heavy.
Yeah. So and look at how beautiful the figure on the far right is, and the drapery of these women. I mean, like, it's so beautiful. But
this is my favorite one I've seen. The composition on this is
beautiful,
brilliant. Because look at what he's doing with light. He has this light coming down and cutting this strong diagonal that gives a dark background to these three women. And then the way he puts him in shadow, but just his knees are lit and his feet is so conceptual.
What you're seeing is, I think, is a real readjustment in his work, because he does this this very complicated work to try, like, is on steroids what his contemporaries are doing, which is kind of like an updated Rococo with classical subjects. And then he gets criticized for it. And then he goes completely the other way, where everything kind of looks like pasted and sculptural on a frieze. Yeah. But all the details are really beautifully modeled. And then 4 years later, he's kind of found an in-between space where this is...
Is that what this is? This is the later?
Yeah, this is the later one. So this is the one where he's now kind of like, he's not as severe as he was in the other two images with making it a completely stark composition that's very
not to mention
linear,
execution with every figure cut in, like, hard edged. Yeah.
But there's a portrait of a young woman that's one image to the left of it, and I want you to put her face side by side. I want you to just put her side by side. This is a portrait he does 1 year later of a friend. Okay. And I want you to look at her face and her hands, and the style you got to remember looking at her hands. The face of the time, the hair you got to remember in the face are all powdered because that was the style of the time. And so I want to contrast when you're doing a narrative, a painting, a history painting, as we call it now, you are idealizing the faces. You're making these noses that are impossible, this symmetry that's impossible. But he's doing portraiture on the side. And his portraiture is a little idealized, but
it's a little bit.
But okay, zoom in on her face. Take out the other image for a second, and
I wish it was a little sharper.
Okay, let me maybe we'll give a better example here. There are two self-portraits that he did 4 years apart. They're also on that side. Take that one, and there's another one right there. These are two self-portraits. Okay.
It's so weird to see him. Now these look naturalistic.
They are. They're very, this is him. So the one on the right, he did first, right as the revolution's getting kicked off, right? He's still married. He's got his 4 children. The second one, he's jailed by himself. The one on the left is him in jail, 4 years. And he's
because of the revolution?
Yeah, he's in jail because he basically sided with Robespierre and Marat, and they were doing some pretty extreme things. I'll tell you about him in just a second. But look at how unidealized his own self-portrait is, especially the one on the left, where it almost looks like he's got a bit of paralysis asymmetrically. He didn't really. But, the one on the right is my favorite. I don't know,
because it's on both paintings.
Yeah, they're 4 years apart. And the one on the right makes him look a little older because he's still got the style of a powdered wig.
Mm-hmm.
But the one on the left is the older one. That's him 4 years later. So the one on the right was done first. Okay. The one on the left was done second. Okay. So just zoom in on the one on the right for a minute.
Okay.
He's done 3 self-portraits. I'm showing you and this just gives you an idea of, how he was as a portrait painter.
I don't think this is finished though.
I don't think it is either. It's not finished. If you want to see a finished one, go to my favorite one is the man who's at a desk. Yeah, one right there.
Oh, that looks finished.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, so you can see that the choice to idealize these forms that he's doing in these figures and make them look starkly idealized and flat, and it's not because he can't. It's a choice.
It's clearly
absolutely
a choice,
right? I mean, because this is him.
Oh, that hand.
And he's admitting these things side by side as history paintings. So his portraits are being shown side by side in contests because he's proud of these too. It's not like he's not proud of them. He's just, it's like, he's unimpeachable, really, right? I mean, he's just really like on a technical level. David not only knows how to draw, but he knows how to lay down paint.
Mm-hmm. The textures on the rug.
And he knows.
I mean, it looks like a rug over a table, but whatever.
It is. That was a style at the time. They called them Turkish rugs, and they weren't on the floor. But if you had a nice Oriental or Asian rug, Oriental rugs, we call them, you would throw them over. This style was more to throw them on a table than on the floor and use them like a tablecloth. Yeah.
I love the contrast between the detail in that rug and the detail in his hands and feather, and then that painterly coat. That coat is so painterly.
Now,
man,
I'm about to show you one of the most famous images in the history of art, especially in the history of France.
Okay.
It's called the Death of Marat. And it's a man who's leaning on his side and he's dead and he's writing. Okay. Yeah. So there are very, very famous images here. Now, Marat is a super complicated figure. So Marat was part of this original revolutionary group. And Marat has a skin condition, which means he spends a lot of his life sitting in a bathtub with chemicals that are keeping his skin from having rashes and all kinds of problems. That was the solution at the time. And I mean, he was one of the radical. So this is oversimplifying it because the French Revolution is super complicated, but there are basically 2 groups. There's Robespierre and Marat, who believe that in the revolution and executing any of the aristocracy and creating a state that's got a constitution. And then there's another group, which this woman named Charlotte Corday was a part of, who believes that should include women and everybody should be a citizen and women should have rights as part of this. And Marat can't bring himself to support the women as being part of the government. And he's drawing up death lists to kill the revolutionaries who want women to be in power and to have a vote. And Charlotte Corday, who was an activist for women's rights, works her way into his home and stabs him through the heart. And you can see the wound. And this is David making an image of him after he'd been stabbed by Charlotte Corday. And the irony is that Charlotte Corday sends back women's rights like 50 years in France by killing Marat, because then everybody who is a supporter of Marat, including David, says, look, you can't trust women.
Oh, that
because they'll kill you. Yeah. And and she's the subject of a popular play on Broadway right now. I can't remember what it's called. And Corday, she was an amazing figure. And Marat, like, ultimately was a terrible human being in a lot of ways. He was a terrible human being. And David creates this image of martyrdom, of a revolutionary martyr who's killed. And
so David's on Marat's side on this.
Yeah, at first. And David,
so this is a tribute. This is a tribute to Marat.
This is a tribute piece, yeah. And remember, David's given up his wife, who's also he's given up his wife and children for the revolution. You know, he's all in. on these death lists. He's helping write up death lists, right? And then
Dude, I thought Caravaggio was bad. This guy's.
and then when the revolution gets really out of control, and it's clear that like it's just about killing anyone who disagrees with a few people, then David, he loses his belief in the revolution, and he paints. Go to that scene of it's a battle. Keep going. A little more to the left. Nope.
There we go.
There you are. And this is the Sabine women who are interceding in a war, by showing the warring sides, not only themselves, but their children. And so like you see there's the one woman on the left who's holding a baby in the air. There's the old woman who's showing her chest saying, "Kill me." And David, he paints this, and publicly renounces the revolution and says, no amount of killing is going to justify the revolution. The killing, like I repent of these death lists. I repent of saying that that the revolution is going to go forward without any cost. He reconciles with his wife, and he
do we know what gave him, what caused this change of heart?
He's arrested and goes, that self-portrait that he did, the second one that was on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
He paints that while he's in jail for the killings. Robespierre gets executed. David gets off with a prison sentence because he wasn't actually rounding up people. And he kind of like when he's in jail, I think he realizes that the revolution had gotten out of control. That there were just too many. It's the story of any revolution. The American Revolution had this too. I mean, the revolution happened in 1776, but it wasn't until 1791 that we had our Constitution. It took a while to get the government together, right? And you had people who, I mean, you even see it today. Like in today, there's these people who are like, change at any cost, and they're idealists. And David started off that way with the revolution. He was an idealist, but then when he started to see that there's a difference between tearing things down and building things up. And the revolution had succeeded in getting rid of the monarchy, but it hadn't succeeded in coming up with a government. And he decides that the way that we need to change it is to come up with a government. And he gets fully behind Napoleon because he says the revolution is complete with Napoleon. So it's ironic. We look at it as irony that, so you tear down the monarchy just to put a dictator on the seat.
Yeah, that is ironic.
And he then goes 100% behind Napoleon, and he becomes the propagandist for Napoleon and comes up with some of the most iconic images. I mean, look at Napoleon on his horse is there, right? I mean, like he came up with that. That's David. This is he comes up with, look at the one that's the crowning of Napoleon. That's like a 40-foot long painting. That's two images to the right of that.
Do you think he knew Napoleon?
Oh yeah, they knew each other very well. Yeah.
So you think he collaborated with Napoleon to get this painting done?
Oh yeah, and Napoleon actually crossed the Alps. That's Napoleon crossing the Alps with his army, and it was symbolic of the Hadrian crossing the Alps. But everybody knew that. But Napoleon actually crossed it with a donkey, not with that horse. and everybody knows that now. I mean, like, look at the crowning of Napoleon. Like, this is the most famous image of Napoleon. You were just there. Keep going. Left, two left.
Sorry, my bad.
This is like a 40-foot tall painting.
Oh my
wide
gosh,
painting.
are you kidding me?
No, it's in the Louvre. It's enormous. And there's Napoleon crowning Josephine, his wife. And David literally sits with every person who was important there and paints their portrait one by one into the canvas directly.
Wonder how long it took him
over
to paint
time.
this.
Oh, it took him years. It took him years to do it.
Wow.
So, but I've skipped ahead on something. I do want to go back. Is that when the revolution originally happens, he does this painting, this drawing, which is famous, called the Tennis Court Oath. And it's that one right there. And it's the moment where on the grounds of Versailles, where the royal family had been overthrown, a group of people from the Third Estate all get together and swear an oath that they will continue to meet until a constitution is made.
Hmm.
And David's, this image is famous in France. Everyone knows the tennis court oath because it is the image of the revolution. It's like our image of the Declaration of Independence being signed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this image is for them. And for years, he had the plan of working this into a monumental painting. But by the time he was working on, he had gotten into the painting, he'd been jailed and then lost faith in the revolution. And that monumental painting that he started to work on reveals some of his methods. It's the mostly blank white painting on the left. And you'll see, put them side by side for a minute.
Wait, I don't. Oh, this
and then
here?
right there. Yeah, put it side by side with this one. So this one is about 30 feet wide. The other one that you're working on the left is just a couple feet wide, and it's supposedly the original premier pensée, for what was going to be the tennis court oath painting. And this shows how he was working up the final oath painting into a work. So what he's doing, and you can see his method, is if you look really closely, he's got all the guidelines in it. And he's also pulled out most of the figures, dramatically reduced the number of figures in it. I mean, there were like 80 figures in the drawing, and there are like 15 figures in this, right?
Yeah.
And if you look really closely, I tried to get a high resolution, you can see a grid plus principal guidelines.
Wait, what is it? What are these white sketches?
I think that they're placeholders for, I mean, go up close because it's a really high resolution image. You should be able to see
it's
almost like chalk, isn't it?
Yeah, why is it white? And then they got some white arms
I think that's
over here that don't connect.
I think, yeah.
Oh no,
that's
they do connect.
That's because he hasn't worked out the he hasn't, so kind of like the first layer is gridding everything out. The second layer is putting in the light chalk versions of everybody. The third layer is doing the nude anatomy in graphite. The next layer is actually painting their portraits in one by one as they visit the studio.
Dude, this process is whack. I can't. He's got a complete head, and then he's got a semi-complete drawing, and then he's got drawing that he's just still working in. I mean, how does he know he's not going to move this figure once he gets the other figures in there? This is an really
because he's
strange.
already done a small version of it that's gridded, not the one that we just looked at.
But he's done one like this.
He's done one like this.
So he knows what all these other figures are.
He knows where everything is. Everything's been worked out before he puts it on canvas. And then what's interesting to me is that he's not going to show any of these figures nude. What he's going to do is he's figured out the anatomy of everything, and he actually paints the anatomy, which is fascinating. And then he is going to bring in the figures. He's going to bring in models to pose in clothing that he's then going to paint over the anatomy, the heroic anatomy.
Okay,
below.
Now I get this because this is how I worked when I worked from life. I would do nude studies, and then I would dress a mannequin. So it's similar. I would dress a mannequin, but the nude studies would help me to know where all those key points were, where the fabric would have tension and hang. Most obvious being like the shoulders, right? But I never added genitalia. Yeah. And I never added detail and muscle, like only the muscles that would press through the clothes. But I wouldn't be concerned about like tendons around the knee. I would be concerned about the kneecap. It's just extraordinary how much effort he's putting into something that's going to be covered up.
Well, I can tell you why I think he's doing it.
Why is that?
And I don't think it's just for purposes of anatomy.
Okay.
He is desperately trying to raise money to pay for this painting. And so imagine that you are maybe a overweight revolutionary who's got money, and you're being included in the painting, and he's put in your heroic form that looks like a Michelangelo, and it looks like a Michelangelo.
Really, you think that's what he's doing?
And I know he is. I know he's doing that
because you can tell by the head on these people. They're not like, they don't look like this.
Yeah. But he's
Oh,
making
that's
them all look like
hilarious.
heroes, and he's trying to make them feel like heroes. But he actually believes it too. It's not just like there's a bit of propaganda to it, but he actually believes that this is what the heroic Romans were like too. He thinks it's the same way statues were done for the Roman generals.
Well, honestly, it makes perfect sense. I mean, because if it's symbolic of their power and influence, how else do you show that without showing physical strength in a painting or in a physical presence? A lot of people were critical of my crucifixion because Jesus was in too good a shape. And that was the argument I used. I was like, well, I mean, I didn't actually argue with anybody about it. I just ignored the criticism. But my reasoning was, well, how else do you illustrate the power of Christ, this figure, this incredible figure from 2,000 years ago, and without physically showing him with physical power, even though he may have been all gaunt and whatever in real life, I don't know. So it actually makes a lot of sense that they would.
Yeah, and he's remember David is an idealist to the end, right? I mean, he really believes that art can change the world, and for him, it did. I mean, he's symbolically at every stage of the revolution creating the propaganda images for it. But it's propaganda is maybe too harsh of a word because he believes it. He believes it. It's not just like superficial nonsense. And then when he feels like the revolution's gone too far, he creates an image to try and turn it around, right? And I think that I want to show you two more images.
Wonder how much he regretted.
Three more images.
Okay. Wonder how much, if at all, he regretted having the paintings that were pro-revolution out there floating around once he had a change of tune.
I think it's a good question. I'm sure there are people that have the answer to that too, but I think that he kind of took it all in his stride because he was living through big times, I mean,
Right.
it's like, so I'm going to show you something that he lived to see, and this is a painterly issue.
Okay.
So I want you to put two paintings side by side. They're both mythological. One is Jupiter on his throne, and another one is of a bunch of nude mythological figures. So that one right there. And then next to it, let's see, here's an image. Go to the left of that. 1, 2, 3 images. Put those right there. The image on the left is by the one on the left is by Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres. Ingres. It's spelled Ingres. He was the student of David. And the one on the right is by David. And the one on the left is the new style. And David hated it. He felt like art was going in the wrong direction.
He hated the style of his student?
He hated it because he felt like there was an exaggeration, especially of the woman in form. It sacrificed accuracy. And
wait, didn't you say David's was on the right?
David's is on the right.
Interesting.
So go to but the one on the left, put them side by side again.
All right.
So you've got the one on the left.
Sorry, I'm such an idiot.
That's right.
Hold
That's right,
on.
don't worry about it.
Sometimes I forget how to use a computer. Okay.
So the one on the left is by his student, who becomes the teacher of De La Roche, who does the death of what's the execution of Lady Jane Grey, right? And the one on the left is a mix of kind of like imagined forms and shapes, and some realism and some classicism. To David and his people, it looked like a mutt. It looked like an absolute mutt of styles and choices. And David paints the one on the right as a response to how classical painting should actually look, as a counter argument to what's happening on the left. And so we look at this and we'd say, like in a way, I feel like the one on the left is a more successful image.
I feel like they could be painted by the same person, but I'm ignorant. I don't understand.
But
are you sure he wasn't just jealous of a student that matched him in skill?
Oh, this was a very popular conversation of Eng crossed a line, idealizing like I like coming up with really wacky anatomy, wacky figures, wacky coloring, wacky all kinds of things. And David was deliberately responded, was very public with, this is how classical painting should be done, in your face, Ang. And you know what's funny is that people had moved on from Ang, from David. And by this point, David, he moves into exile after Napoleon loses power. David is forever associated with Napoleon and the bad choices of the revolution. And he has to leave
that's
France.
harsh.
He spends the last years of his life in France. He's not even buried in France. He gets his heart gets cut out by and buried with his wife, who's buried in France. And but David's body is never allowed to be buried in France. Even to this day, like they won't, that like it's a controversial subject. And so David is still participating with his paintings at a distance and making his arguments about what good painting should look like. And Ang and his people have moved on to what's called, kind of like a romanticism. And there are moments of this that are absolutely beautiful, but I don't want to focus so much on this painting as what I think is the most beautiful painting David ever did, in my opinion. And it's the one, go to the left. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there.
Oh,
This
that
is
beautiful.
The Farewell of Telemachus, or Telemachus, depending on how you do it. It's one of the last paintings he ever does. And this one's in the Getty.
When did he, how old was he when he died?
Let me see where he did this. So he dies in 1825.
You said he was born in
And
78?
He's born in
Or 48.
48.
48.
So he dies at the age of 77, and he paints this work. Scroll all the way down. He paints this work in 1818, 7 years before he dies. So he's 70 years old when he paints this.
Man, he's still got chops.
And he paints this in exile. And notice, it's not a portrait. We know he can do portraitures. It's idealized. Again,
it is. I don't understand why he's doing that.
This is one of, and it's the classical scene from the Odyssey of,
that's why
Telemachus is looking for his father Odysseus, and he falls in love with one of the daughters of the king of Sparta, but he has to choose between choosing his own happiness or going back to continue to look for his father. And he chooses a life of purpose rather than a life of self-indulgence. And so this is him saying goodbye to what would be an easy and happy life for one that's going to be hard but full of purpose. And so he paints this when he's 70 in exile. And it is, like, for me, one of the most beautiful paintings I've ever seen in my life. It is.
Have you seen this one in
beautiful.
person?
Many times. It's at the Getty. I'm obsessed with this painting in person.
Maybe you could answer this for me. Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah.
Finish your thought.
No, I just think, like, to me, it's not a huge painting. I mean, this painting is only, it's only about 40 inches wide.
Oh, really?
So it's like a
40 by 40.
20,
so it's still life size.
30 by 40. Yeah.
So,
and it's still in this kind of neoclassical idealized style.
Yeah.
Right. But go ahead. What was your question?
This episode is brought to you in part by Rosemary Brushes. If you're one of my listeners who's a professional artist, you're already using Rosemary brushes. But for the rest of you, come on. Take your work a little more seriously. Stop buying the other brands. It's just not worth it. Every now and then you may get lucky and buy a good brush from another brand, but use the brand that professionals like myself are using. Go to rosemaryandco.com, link in the description or the show notes, and get yourself some quality brushes before your next painting.
So my question is, when he's doing mythology as opposed to actual current events, he always seems to do idealized faces.
Yeah.
Was that just sort of an expected, almost like a requirement for painters of the time when you're doing mythology, make mythological heads? Or, I mean, did any artist in or around his time actually use real models for mythological characters?
It was just expected. I mean, why do superheroes in our day always wear tight-fitting costumes?
So it was
Right?
part of
It's not real.
tradition. Everyone did it.
It's not real. They're not real clothing. What on earth is like this like latex that everybody's wearing in Marvel movies, right?
I know, but everyone
I mean,
has a real face,
it's not
though.
even it's not even practical, right? It's not to
Yeah.
wear clothing like that, right? But it's what we expect superheroes to look like. We expect them to have capes. We expect them to look a certain way. You don't expect to look at a painting of a mythological figure in David's day and see your grandpa. You're expected to see
Okay, that's what they're accustomed to.
you're expected to see an idealized figure that and in some ways I think it's a healthy way of approaching things because we want, you know, we have all these arguments about, you know, this is what Christ looks like, but if Christ kind of looks like a figure that is uh indiscernible in the sense that he doesn't look like a specific person. We're so used to seeing an idealized Christ that we think that that's a problem now. But it was getting around the other problem of making him look like too specific of a person. You want him to look like somebody who's from another world almost.
Right.
That it doesn't exist in everyday life.
Right.
Because you don't want to pull Christ down to everyday life level where he's got dirt under his fingernails. In that time, that's how they thought of it. You want him to look like somebody who is from another world,
Or nobody
that's
in
how-
particular. You want
and
him.
nobody in particular.
Right. Yeah.
And
Okay.
and the pendulum in the history of art goes back and forth between these, and there are reasons for both. I think there are reasons for making Christ or Odysseus look like an everyday normal person, because you know it all depends on your audience and the time you're living in. And in David's time, there is definitely the idea of idealizing these figures, and then 50 years later they've completely moved the other way where they make these people look like everyday people.
Who would you
and
say
you
is
just
one of
have
the
to
first
understand.
people to start making mythological or biblical or whatever figures look like regular people?
Oh, I think Jerome does it. I think that the whole naturalist movement is working on
Okay.
that as a subject, and it's something that becomes more and more popular in the 1860s, 70s, and 80s.
Okay.
And I think that in David's time, I think that near the end of his life, his style of neoclassicism is falling out of favor and going more towards what we call romanticism. And romanticism is again a kind of exaggeration of form that's a lot like the Rococo. That's what Eng represented to people. It's almost like a return to the Rococo, return to mannerism, where gesture becomes more imagined than realistic, and form becomes the body becomes subjected to the overall composition, not the other way around. And David, here's this painting near the end of his life when he's 70, where these are absolutely poses that he could have done as a student in his graduating year from the École des Beaux-Arts. They look like they could be classical statue forms, right? But there's a simplicity and beauty to the figures and the gestures, but there's a huge complication to like even the small value shifts and the way that shadow. I mean, look at the warmth in that shadow that spear has against his arm. Isn't that crazy and beautiful?
It's so
The warmth
beautiful.
I mean, it is, to me, this painting is one of the most beautiful paintings ever done in the history of art. I mean, look at that ribbon across his shoulder, and just the subtleness of the shade, the values in her face and the lips, and then go down to like where go to her body and where those the clothing clasps together on her
Isn't that
side.
great?
It is, zoom in on it. It is,
God.
to me, that is some of the most beautiful little drapery. And it's not sexual, right? He could have made this a very sexy painting, but it's just, there's almost an innocence to it. There's just like,
It's not
can't-
almost. It just feels there is a purity to it.
and he's in exile here. He's 70 years old. He's painted these almost like these paintings that have been yelling at people about the revolution, yelling at people about Napoleon. There's something to me about an old man who's still going to the classics and who's painting a scene that's about a young man at the beginning of his life who has to choose between an easy and joyful life and a hard life that's also joyful but in a different way. That to me, like, I almost see like this is David's self-portrait of his life, right? Of like, he could have stayed with the aristocracy, could have stayed with his wife and children, and instead he chose the revolution, and then he chooses Napoleon. And I'm sure he's full of regrets, but I'm also sure he's full of like feeling like, oh, but I always chose purposeful things all along the way, right? I always try to do, I didn't choose didn't always make the right decision, right? But I was always 100% in on what I did. And technically, you know, here's the thing about David is that there are a lot of things he got wrong politically, but he does open the first studio up to women, and he does open it up to international students, and he does become such a poster boy for powerful revolutionary paintings that his students become the painters of the American Revolution, right? Like the people who Trumbull, who goes and studies with David, and the painters in England and the painters in Spain. Like, David becomes the most influential image maker of revolutionary, not just revolutionary images, but like historic subjects can say things about contemporary politics. And everybody in the 19th century tries to become the new David by painting a subject about history to say something about what's going on contemporaneously. And I don't think anybody ever gets as influential as David is. David is by far the most influential painter, I think, of the 19th century, starting in the 18th century, but really like in the 19th century, everybody's trying to be David, at least in their intention to change the world through paintings.
Yeah. So
Technically,
David, though,
I
was
also
different.
think he's a master.
David was a little.
Go ahead.
Was David different though in that when he wasn't painting mythological subjects, he was painting current events?
Well, there were a few, but he was mostly painting current events through mythological subjects, right? Like
That's true.
You know, he's Brutus sacrificing his children for the.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm thinking of like the martyrdom.
But the tennis court oath was maybe the most contemporary thing that he did that was obviously contemporary. But I mean, and everybody's discussing them. He's the subject of every. I mean, his paintings become like it's interesting. The painting of the oath of the Horatii is becomes the background of the scene of a stage by Voltaire on the same subject. So even playwrights are taking his paintings and making them into full plays to become the discussion of the time. However, like, I mean, this is something that we should, I mean, I don't want us to forget is that a lot of artists they've got big ideas, but they don't have the skills to back it up. And I think David had the skills, and his choice of applying those skills changes over time. So he's comes from the Boucher Rococo period. He can paint like that, and then he basically invents neoclassicism by making everything very pared down. But then he kind of complicates that and says it was too much, right? And he kind of brings back more three-dimensional space
Or too little.
layering.
Yeah.
And then but at the same time, it's not just that he's doing these stark idealized figures beautifully. His portraits were beautiful and he could be very naturalistic when he wanted to be. And then at the end of his life, when he feels like people are getting away from accurate painting and classical principles of real understanding of anatomy and value shifts and line and they're starting to exaggerate things, he comes out fighting again, and he starts doing paintings like this to say, guys, let's get back to our roots as academic painters. And they don't really follow him. He kind of becomes the old man who's talking about the importance of learning how to, sing well. And they're like, no, we've got auto tune.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
he
And
moving paintings in his old age when he painted this, or was he just absolutely on his own?
no, he's sending them to France, and he's still got his audience
Oh, he
of
does.
people that
Okay.
are accepting him. Yeah, he's still got him. He's still got him.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know quite what to make of all the discussion we've had, and whether or not we've done everything we've needed to do to talk about David. It's hard because David could be the subject of a multi-volume biography,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And in a 2.5 hour discussion, we've talked about, a handful of his paintings. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job of showing the scope of what he was capable of doing, and showing some of his methods as he painted, and talking a little bit about how he was taught, how he changed over time. And
Hmm.
so, I think we've done a decent job of doing it. I always feel inadequate when we talk about some of these big people, because, I'm he's above my pay grade of judging him as an individual and the moral choices he made. And he's also above my pay grade in judging whether or not, I agree or disagree with how he painted, or how he fit in with, as a teacher or as a technician. I just think you have to say that there are some artists who they were so influential, not only with their ideas, but with how they affected the people around them. David is one of those. David changed the way that people painted. He is ground zero for the 19th century. A lot of people just either they're reacting to paint more like him or less like him, and people are talking about him for 100 years in art.
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, when I was at the Louvre last June,
Mhm.
I saw this painting there, and I spent some time there because it's famous, It's like,
Mhm.
God, you gotta stand in front of this painting for a little while. And I wish I had known this much about him. The problem I have as a painter is I'm so focused when I'm in a museum on learning about the craft that sometimes I forget to read the tag or prepare myself for the visit by reading the history. Because if I had known half this about David, I would have been much more interested in this painting. I mean,
Well,
he was
art
one
historians have
interesting character.
art historians have the opposite problem, where when I went to school and did my master's and PhD, they spent all their time talking about social history and almost none about technical ability or skills, or,
Yeah,
methodology. And so, that's why you and I are talking, buddy, because
I
we
know.
like, we marry the two worlds together.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, I'm so interested in him now. But to your point, what you were saying earlier, I think it is true that he lived in a different time. We can't judge his decisions. But man, I sure would love to go back in time and know what he was like as a person, like one on one. Have dinner with him and
Yeah.
just see if his ego is really as big as it sounded. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. You just never know. You can't judge a person from 300 years back. But
I mean, I absolutely, it was a life-changing experience for me, going and seeing the exhibition at the Louvre and seeing
mhm,
everything. It was a huge exhibition. It had, over 100 works of his, and there's some they couldn't bring in. They couldn't bring in the crowning of Napoleon. You had to go to the other part of the Louvre where it's just permanently installed, because it's like 40 feet long, right? They're not,
mhm,
you couldn't see it, but you could see. I mean, just seeing, one person who was so ambitious in his lifetime to do these and to also see a public that wanted an ambitious artist and accepted his ambition. And 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 um it wasn't just like somebody who was laboring in obscurity making masterpieces. It's somebody who was making masterpieces that became the discussion of his time.
mhm.
I mean, that is like, how many times in history has that ever happened? right? Where you get that sinking of time, place, and person, right? Of all of them. He was it, and he was a man who was equal to his time with the thoughtfulness of his art. He was making very thoughtful images, and he was willing to admit when he made mistakes. And
That's a pretty big
it
deal.
was it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. I posted on Instagram. I try and stay away from politics on social media because, first of all, I don't think social media is a useful place for politics usually, because it's hard to change people's minds. People really just they that happens one on one, and then my mind has changed one on one too. It's not just me and other people. It's other people to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I did post this image a few weeks ago of the Trojan of the Sabine women coming into the middle of that army on my social media,
Mm-hmm.
and said, here David, he was somebody who believed his beliefs at all costs at one point, and then after seeing the costs of those beliefs enacted, he said, no, 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 no. Maybe we should think about the consequences of our beliefs at all costs, and instead compromise and have more dialogue and debate, and think about how people are affected by what our choices. And that he would be willing to do that after he had put his reputation out there as the guy who was designing the uniforms and coming up with the paintings and everything he was even coming up with like the logos of the new revolutionary government. And then for him to back up and say, hold on a second, let me rethink about this. And I'm not trying to say that about, it just says something about the man. He was a thoughtful person.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like
really
he was
thoughtful
just
person.
really freaking passionate.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
and then there are those times when he was like a baby, like, I'm
well,
gonna
even
fast
still,
for 2.5
so
days because I
passionate.
lost the.
Yeah, I know. He probably just had very deep emotions in general. I bet everything just touched him deeply, whether negative or positive, is how I imagine him being.
I would love to meet him. Not because I think he's not my favorite artist when it comes to the paintings he did.
Yeah,
They're not the ones that
either.
I wouldn't want to live with his paintings in the same way that I'd want to live with a Velasquez
Mm-mm.
or a Sargent. But I admire him so much. I admire what he did. He was just amazing.
Do you think I know we probably need to wrap up, but do you think he was a household name? Do you think he pissed people off with his politics? Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are people, that's why he can't be buried in France. Why he wasn't buried in France.
That's right. Yeah, but those are governments that won't let him be buried. But what about that third class?
Yeah.
Like, did those people know who he was?
Yeah, they did. He was a household name in his time for sure. Yeah.
For good or for bad?
Both. I mean, people thought of him like they thought about Napoleon or they thought about Robespierre. They just thought of him as being somebody who was an extremist. And then they thought of him as somebody who either betrayed the revolution when he went to Napoleon, or betrayed, he was a really complicated character. He's like, I think in the end, they still admired him for his skill and integrity of his beliefs. But a lot of people questioned whether or not he had the right beliefs. Right? It's hard. I think you can't sum him up. I do think, I do want to take one thing back. That last painting of Telemachus saying goodbye is like one of my top 10 paintings ever made in the history of art.
Which one? Which one are you talking about?
That one right there.
Oh, this one. Yeah. It's pretty.
That to
gorgeous.
me is one of the most beautiful paintings that's ever been made, in my opinion. It is just absolutely and it's stylistically, it's so different from anything I own or would have ever gone for. But it's just one of those paintings that when you think of what beauty is, and just that shadow of her arm across his chest and stomach. I mean, just the moments like that is
so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it's just it has It's so beautiful. And
It's
I
like
can't
you
even
could
tell
reach
you
in and
why I
touch
think
it.
it's so.
I
And I
mean,
can't even tell you why I think it's so beautiful, because stylistically, it's not my taste usually, but it's beautiful.
it really is. I agree. That's one of the more beautiful paintings I've seen. And it's interesting how he signed his name
Yeah.
on this. Is this like a map holder or something?
I think it's a scroll case, yeah, like a map holder for a message that he's going to take back with him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really interesting one, Micah. I had no idea about any of this stuff. And if I ever get back to the Louvre, it's going to be a whole different thing seeing his work in person.
Well, and if you get to the Met, you'll be able to see some of his
Oh,
important
that's
paintings
true.
in the Met.
Yeah, I'll be there
And when
this
you
year.
go to the Getty, this is at the Getty.
This one's at the Getty?
So this one's at the Getty.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
So this is
Ooh, I need
not,
to
this
get
is
down
in
there.
our backyard essentially, right? And this was not on loan to the show that I saw. And I was shocked when I saw that it wasn't on loan. Because to me, this is one of the best things he ever did.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
if you so there are ways of seeing it wherever you are. He's got works, and if as I'm looking through this list of all his most important paintings, they're in the Art Institute of Chicago, they're in the Louvre, they're in the Dallas Museum of Fine Art, they're in Ireland, they're in Quebec, they're in Marseille, Cleveland, Ohio, in Warsaw, Poland, Buffalo, New York, the Met, of course, in Munich, in the Uffizi, Art Institute of Chicago, Brussels. I mean, his work, if you have a major museum, there's probably a David in it.
Yeah, it's probably kind of a requirement. You got to get a David into your museum.
Yeah. Yeah. So next time we get together, I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about. I've got a couple of people. I won't say anything now, but thanks for letting me talk about it.
Heck
Have a
yeah,
show and
man.
tell
It's
with
great
this one,
seeing
buddy.
you again.
Thanks,
Let's do
buddy.
lunch
Good to be seen.
sometime.
I'd love to.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for tuning in to the Undraped Artist Podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. And if you could, leave a comment or review. That really helps the channel. Please share the show with your friends, and if you're feeling generous, consider a monthly donation at theundrapedartist.com. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.